Good morning, everyone out there on Instagram and Facebook. We are about to go live on the Inner Circle podcast in a few seconds here. But good morning to everybody and happy Saturday.
Good morning. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good morning, everyone, again, and welcome back to the Inner Circle podcast, where real estate meets real life. I'm your host, your Home Girl Jillian, and we are coming to you live from intellectualradio.com, their YouTube channel, and across my social media platforms. So if you missed the live show today, don't worry. This episode and all others will be available anytime on intellectualradio.com's YouTube channel. It will go to iHeartRadio after we're done, and then it'll be available on my social media pages. So each week on the Inner Circle podcast, we bring you real talk and actionable insights on real estate, business, and life. And today's episode is going to be an inspiring one. I'm sitting down with my good friend and fellow realtor, Monique Neal, who made the bold move from Los Angeles to Chicago 10 years ago and has built a thriving real estate career from the ground up. From navigating a new city to becoming a go-to expert in the rental market, transitioning into home sales, and now diving into property flipping, Monique's journey is all about hustle, resilience, and growth. So I'm so excited to talk to her today. We'll be talking about her transition from LA to Chicago, building her real estate business in a new market, Chicago's rental trends and what renters and investors need to know, her decision to start flipping properties and the lessons she's learned from her most recent flip, and then her take on the Chicago real estate market and where it's headed. So whether you're a renter, a buyer, or a seasoned investor thinking about getting into real estate, this episode is for you. And of course, we want you to be a part of the conversation. So call us live at 708-223-8953 with your questions or your thoughts. Whether you've considered relocating to a new city, jumping into real estate, or flipping your first property, we've got you covered this morning. So grab your coffee, tea, or mimosa. I wish we had mimosas, but we don't this morning. It's okay. Next time. Get comfy and let's get into the Inner Circle podcast. So Monique Neal.
Okay,
welcome.
intro.
I know, right? Intro. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you agreed to come sit and talk with me.
Thanks for having
Like
me.
I mentioned in the intro, Monique is a really, really good friend of mine. I've known her it's been over 10 years. I met her when she came to Chicago through for her best friend, who's also my good friend as well, Fallon Obamanu, which she'll be on the show later on this month.
She and her husband.
Told me. Yes, they'll be on the show later this month
yes.
To talk about what they've got going on in the real estate world. And I know they are clients of yours, so we're going to talk about what their plans are. But today is all about you. Yeah. So I got an icebreaker question I was thinking about how to start this off. So what's one thing you miss most about LA and one thing you love about Chicago?
One thing I miss for sure is family.
Okay.
And my answer is usually family or weather when I get this question. But the weather is changing dramatically in Los Angeles, in California. Mm-hmm. You know, climate change, global warming is a real thing. So, you know, some of the temperatures are matching up with Chicago as far as the temperatures dropping at night to 30, 40, which is kind of unheard of. Right. So, but yeah, my answer would definitely be family that I miss. And what was the second question?
What's one thing, you love about Chicago now that you've been here 10 years?
I love the different options for like food. Like, I mean, I'm a foodie, so if I'm, feeling Italian or Jamaican, food or whatever, like I can find it. Soul food, you can find really like top tier restaurants, really quality like food in Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago, we are known for our food. And how did I know that you were going to say Caribbean or Jamaican cuisine?
Because you know me.
I know Monique, and Monique will hit every Jamaican restaurant.
I know.
Or has been to every Jamaican restaurant in the city of Chicago.
If you need a good recommendation,
she's got you. I got you. She has got you. Okay, so you miss family, the weather, the warm weather there, but I know our weather here all over the world is just doing crazy things. But yes, I can imagine you miss your family, but Chicago brings a whole new perspective on business, personal, everything. So yeah. So relocation, let's talk about your experience. So what brought you to Chicago 10 years ago?
So my best friend, our mutual friend Fallon, actually moved here for a job opportunity. And I came to visit, and she teases me every time because, the first place she relocated to was Arkansas for a job. and she does not like the fact that I never had a desire to go visit her. But because she was always coming home, you know what I mean? So I was gonna see her eventually.
Right.
But when she moved to Chicago, I was just had a lot more interest. I'm like, okay, it's another big city. Let me see what it's like. So I actually came to visit once in March during the St. Patty's Day festivities. That's when I first discovered green beer and
the Green River.
Absolutely.
And bar crawls.
Starting at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Absolutely. And going until midnight.
Yeah. So that was exciting. And then I think I came back again maybe like in April. And then the last trip I took before I actually decided to move here was in the summer. And the summer is what got me.
Summertime
Shy was like no other. So and I remember we were all driving around the city and
why you put me in it?
You were there, friend. You were there. And and then we I don't know if it was Washington Park or one of the parks in South Shore. And the windows were rolled down, that warm breeze flowing through the car. And then I smelled jerk chicken. And mind you, it's like nearly midnight. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is a thing? And I moved here in September the same year.
I'm laughing because I remember that story and I haven't thought about it in so long. Oh God, yes, you're right. That is exactly what happened. And that's the experience that that was an experience. So that's one of the reasons that you said yes.
I said yes. And I came out here and I had Fallon and I was blessed to meet you all too. So I had a small group, but outside of that, I came alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but Chicago just felt welcoming enough to where I was like, no matter what, I'm going to make it. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. So what was like the biggest culture shock when you transitioned? Because I know, although, some of the culture, family and things, especially within the Black community, Chicago, LA, I'm sure there's some similarities, but there's a lot of differences.
There's a lot of differences.
So what was like the biggest culture shock?
The first that hit me real hard, because I brought my car out here. And like I said, I came in September, so I was going into the winter months. And it just so happened it was around like the time you all had one of the worst winters in over like 20 years. Like it was wild.
Yeah, that was like 2017?
It may have been, no.
It was like earlier than that.
It was like 2015. 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
And so I lived in Rogers Park at the time. So I didn't have like a garage space or a covered space. So I parked on the street often. And after the snowstorm, I came outside and I found, so many inches of snow above my tires, like surrounding my car. And I quickly realized I was going to have to shovel my way out of this parking space. But I didn't have a shovel. I didn't have the kit, the car kit, the scraper. And
so nobody told you, nobody prepared you for the winter.
Prepared me for that. So I'm sorry. It's okay. So I proceeded to use a dustpan to scoop my way out of my parking space.
That's about right.
And then I came home to that space and it had a folding chair.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, I just love there's just so much community here. People just chilling in the folding. I'm
That's what you thought that folding chair was.
Until I got cursed out for trying to move said chair to park my space.
Yes, I remember that story as well.
So yeah, culture shock for real.
It's a culture shock. Chicago winter street parking is a real thing here. I know the stories and stuff like that, even Monique just shared, but it is a legit thing. I've been other places and people literally ask, oh, is that real? Because they've seen it on social media. And I'm like, yes, it's real. It's a real thing. Because I've never lived in the actual city. I've never had to deal with it, but friends and family.
You had covered parking. You grew up with covered parking.
Not always covered parking, but a spot.
A designated.
Designated or just an available spot. So I'm sorry, but
because y'all have them wide streets.
That's right.
Plenty of options.
But that was a big culture shock. So I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you moved here 2014. 2015. You got into real estate 2017.
2017. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Having my daughter.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Well, in Cali, my trade is styling.
Right.
So I'm a hairstylist by trade. And I started that business literally as a teenager. Like I was literally styling my teachers' hair in junior high. Because I was just, I was good at it. And I would do my more natural style, so braids and twists and locks, and I would style my own hair. So I was kind of like a walking billboard for myself. So I got a lot of clients that way, and just, through word of mouth, it just took off. So I did that for a very long time until my late 20s. And so when I decided to move to Chicago, it kind of worked out because I was working in Brentwood at a salon, and the owner and I got really close. And his father just so happened to own a 3-flat building in Rogers Park. So he agreed to allow me to stay in one of the units. So, and at the time there was a salon called Dry Bar, which is really popular, that started in California, but she, expanded to the Midwest, and she opened her first space in Lincoln Park. So I auditioned, I got the job, and that's when I decided, okay, I'm here. So at first, I was really like, I'm just going to build my clientele here, but it was really hard, because I didn't really know a lot of people. And with Dry Bar, I'm not doing natural hairstyles anymore. Now I'm doing blowouts. You know what I mean? So I kind of just got wiped out, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to pivot. So I was pregnant with my daughter, and I decided to try something, utilize my degree and go into just more corporate type of setting. So I joined Bank of America. I got hired with Bank of America as a teller. I lasted nearly a year before I said, stay for me. It wasn't for me. I have a very entrepreneurial spirit. So sitting behind a glass, day to day, I just felt so limited. You know what I mean? So, and around the time I had been exposed to real estate so much, but I had no idea I was going to go into real estate at the time. My daughter's father purchased a 2-flat in Bronzeville. And when we were dating, I was actually with him at the closing table. And still, I have no idea the significance of what is going on in front of me, right? So he closed on the property. And, I discovered, okay, so we're going to live in one unit and you're going to rent out the other two? Wait, so the other two are covering your entire mortgage? So you live in free? You know what I mean? And then, once I got to a place where I'm like, okay, well, the Bank of America is not for me. The corporate setting is not for me. I need something with like limitless earning potential that's going to still give me the flexibility of my time. What is that going to be? And I'm like, maybe I can do real estate. I can do that. You know what I mean? So I just started doing my research. I ended up going into like a class that was like maybe a 6-week program where I just went every Saturday for like 8 hours. And then I became licensed. It all kind of happened pretty quickly.
I remember.
It really did. So then I started at a boutique brokerage up north, and that's when I started leasing as I prepared for my exam to become licensed to sell.
Got it. So back in Cali, were you exposed to real estate or like your family owning property?
Yes.
Okay.
But I still didn't understand the value of that. You know what I mean? So, my best friend Fallon, her parents own their property, and we kind of hung out in the same neighborhood because I have family, this is the west side of Long Beach, who also owned, single family homes. But then, once we got into college, Fallon's father owned a commercial property in Gardena, close to, downtown Los Angeles. I think it was like an 8-unit building. And so me, Fallon, and another friend of ours decided, like, okay, well, we're going to room together. Like, now we're going to step out and be adults. And he allowed us to rent one of his units. And those were some of, like, the best years of my life. But, like I said, this is a man and that wasn't his only property.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So then coming to Chicago, and then being exposed through my child's father, and then my best friend ended up buying her property in Bronzeville. That's when it all clicked of like, yeah, I can do this. And the market was such, I'm like, I not only thought about it from the standpoint of me pivoting, and going into a different career, but how it can benefit me when it comes to the investment side of things. Because the prices were so low.
The prices were low because you started at a time, I mean, we were coming out of the crash, like, so it was still a buyer's market, still in 2017. right? That was before COVID. So
Yeah.
things were pretty consistent, I would say. So you started at a good time. You were able to see I don't want to say a balanced market in a sense. You know, it wasn't a seller's market, it wasn't a buyer's market. It was more of a traditional market. Rates weren't so super high.
Right.
So you were able to kind of get your experience. And I know you joined a team, right?
I did.
Your first brokerage, were you on a team?
Once I was licensed, I went to Baird & Warner at the South Loop, and I joined the team there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you were able to, you know, network with people or be on a team and see how Chicago real estate worked, right?
Yeah.
And the ins and outs, because it was different than Cali. Well, Cali is its own beast, right? But Chicago is its own as well. And I know you just talked about you and Fallon and your other friend, was that Chastity?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
living in her dad's 8-unit building. So you were kind of exposed to rentals, right?
Yes.
So and then coming here with you, Aaron's father buying a building, you renting, you know, the owner of the dry bar, or who it was the owner of the dry bar on the 8-unit or the 3-unit.
The owner of the owner of the salon in Gardena.
Got it. Yeah. Right. So I'm just like, you've been exposed to multi-units.
Yes.
And I feel like when you got here, you really did the rental market is kind of where I saw you doing a lot of activities.
You know, I just thought it was smart to start with rentals, number one, because I can do it for a certain period of time before I had to be licensed.
Right.
But it really gave me an opportunity to really get acclimated to Chicago because I had to familiarize myself with the different neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
What those neighborhoods offered, you know, the different buildings in those neighborhoods, what they offered. So it helped me grow really quickly. I didn't have the weight of dealing with somebody buying like a $500,000 home. And now I have to know all of my stuff. Like I can kind of make little mistakes and kind of learn the craft through leasing without so much, you know what I mean, at stake, I guess.
Got it. So what, so you started in rentals, transitioned to buyers and sellers. So tell me a little bit about when you started, had your first client that was either a buyer or a listing. I don't remember.
You know what's crazy? My first deal was my condo.
Was it?
And it blew me away because I'm like, hold up.
So you represented yourself?
I represented myself, right? So, but what blew my mind is just like, okay, first of all, I was in Bronzeville. I am in Bronzeville. And I was able to secure maybe one of the last foreclosures in that area, right? And it was in amazing condition. I only had to get new appliances and sand and refinish the floors, literally. So I came in low, and was able to secure that. This is before I really understood the value of like building equity.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm thinking this is a great 100 something. You could never get this in Cali, right? But then I'm like, wait a minute. So I can use my commission to redo these floors. Baby, you can't. It's just amazing.
You didn't know.
I didn't know.
Yeah, representing yourself. Well, definitely, you know, it's a benefit.
Yes. So that was my first deal. And then, so once I was licensed, like I said, I went to Baird & Warner. I kind of latched on to a top producer. And I thought that would just be advantageous for me because once he was overwhelmed, he could just feed me clients that he really had no time to take to represent.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that helped me build my clientele because I really didn't have a huge network of people to kind of say, hey, I'm a realtor, work with me. You know what I mean?
Right. Because you didn't know a lot of people here yet.
Right. Yeah. So after that, Compass came about to the Midwest, which is one of the top real estate brokerages in the country. And they were unique in the sense that, you know, other brokerages, they're just going to hire you because it's a numbers game. They don't care what you're grossing. You can be a newbie. They're going to take you on and hope for the best. But with Compass, they're seeking out top producers.
Absolutely.
Right? So in order to get in, you have to either be a top producer or you have to get on a team. So I was recruited on a team because I was still pretty new to the game. So I worked on a team, the Ferrata team, I'm going to say it. And she did most of her work in the South Loop. So that kind of elevated me a lot because I'm working under a woman who's grossing nearly $30 million a year. So it's just a different ballgame, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I started getting more buyer clients because she was mostly on the sales side, the list side. You know what I mean? She would just work with owners. And so the first time home buyer, she really didn't have time for it. So then she would feed me those folks, right? And I was able to nurture those relationships, and through word of mouth, I was able to build my clientele from there.
So, what has been your experience like being in real estate now for 7 years? Six, yeah,
About
7 years.
About 7 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
Is my math off? It's Saturday morning, so my math.
Girl, we don't say 7 or 8, child.
So it's been almost 8 years. Like, cause we got licensed around the same time.
We did,
So what has been your biggest challenge? People ask me this all the time. So what's been the biggest challenge for you? Just in real estate, period.
Just managing the emotional roller coaster that comes with it.
Yours or your clients?
Both.
I was gonna say that would be my answer. Would be both. Yes,
both.
Managing theirs first, and then ours second.
Yeah, because it's a lot of emotions that come into investing this amount of money on a property, and so many things can go wrong. You know what I mean? And so you have to manage people's expectations, and you also you can't think about the money, because the money's not coming until you pick up your check from title.
I tell people that all the time. Period. Don't count. People will look at what we're selling, or, oh, you got this deal. But I tell new agents this all the time. Do not count your money until you close.
Don't do it.
I literally just had a deal. Was supposed to close. The buyer signed the paperwork. Something happened with the seller and title. We still have not closed to this day.
No.
And that was a month ago. So I'm just saying, like, you cannot count your money.
You can't.
Yeah.
And it just kind of keeps you in check of like, no, you just do your due diligence and do all you can to get your client to the closing table. Then you can celebrate,
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest challenge.
So going back to renters and buyers. So I know you worked with some buyers. Has it been more renters than buyers?
It's actually been more buyers than renters.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like
it's been a nice balance of both. I should say, because I learned pretty quickly that a lot of agents don't like doing rentals. And I'm like, why?
I understand that feeling.
We can get this lease done in 2 weeks or less sometimes. Yeah. Especially the larger buildings, the rental buildings with like 400 plus units who already have a leasing staff on site.
Right.
So you're just allowing them to do the tour, and they have incentives for folks to, apply within a certain period of time. So some of my clients in these buildings with like $3,500 a month rent are applying, you know what I mean? And sometimes they offer 100% commission, right? So I'm getting $3,500 in like a week's time. Because, their screening process and approval process goes much faster than you trying to do it on your own.
So and this is for any realtor that's out there that's watching, that, whether you work with rentals or you don't, or you're trying to figure out how do I make money from it. I found from my experience why I think I don't do a lot of rentals. I will work with rentals. It's more so family and friends.
Yeah.
But for me, it's finding property management companies or owners that will pay an agent. I faced that. That was the biggest problem I had. So getting paid, right? Now we're in a different world. Fast forward 8 years for me. Now my renter is responsible for my payment, right? I wasn't necessarily pushing that in the beginning, but with the laws changing in the real estate industry, now my renter is responsible for my commission.
Yeah.
Or just, my fees for helping them locate an apartment. But that was the one issue I was having. The second was dealing with renters who called me because they were ready to rent. But when I started asking questions about, how's your credit? And at first, in the beginning, I was kind of scared to ask that question because it's so personal, right? And we're working with buyers. We're sending buyers to a lender. So I don't necessarily, I have that conversation, but I give it to the lender. They're going to run the credit. The lender is really going to tell me if this buyer is qualified and what stage they're in the process. But with renters, they're calling you and they're saying, hey, I want an apartment. And I ask what your credit score is.
675.
And then I go take you to see 10 different rentals and you apply. And then the score is coming back.
And like it's 540.
Absolutely. But I've taken you to see 10 rentals. And now you don't qualify. I don't get paid. My time. I won't say wasted, but I've spent time with you, and now, right, absolutely, it's time vested in. So, how do you qualify your renters?
Well, okay. So I do go in and I ask the basics of like, okay, well, what's going on? Like, how long have you been on your job? You know, how much do you think you make? Okay, well, make sure you they're going to ask for the last 2 months of pay stubs. So make sure you have that handy, clear pictures of them. If you're starting a new job, make sure you have the offer letter with the company letterhead signed, because these are all the things, I've gotten pushback from owners if it's not like that. So I'll just kind of just prepare them of what is expected of them to prove that they, are quality candidates. But it's a hit or miss, because they could tell me one thing, especially when it comes to the credit. A lot of people do not know their credit score. You know what I mean? So they can say it. Well, the last time I checked about 2 years ago, and I'm like, you got to check now, today. You know what I mean? So, but I feel like the biggest difference between working with a renter and working with a buyer, because like you said, with the buyer, it's all on the lender. You don't have to worry about that side. They're going to screen them and do their job. But with renters, you really have to kind of get nosy and get in the business. But it's only to their benefit, because it's like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. These are the requirements, or maybe we go somewhere where the owner's a little more lenient. You know what I mean? But some people want to live where they want to live at the price point they think they can afford. And so, like it is, setting expectations is sometimes difficult with renters.
So do you talk to your renters about owning as you're touring? Like, do you have those conversations with them? Because a big part of what we do is converting renters to, I mean, that's a marketing strategy for us as realtors. That's where we get a lot of our buyers, is converting renters to buyers or home ownership in general.
Yeah.
So do you kind of use that as a lane to build up your buyer pool in a year? Because a lot of things for us is future.
Right.
So
I have not been good at that.
Okay.
I'll be really honest with you.
No, I mean, I appreciate that.
I mean, it benefits the agent to do that, just to stay top of mind should they choose to rent, and then like just schooling them on the benefits of buying versus renting. But I have not been good at that.
Yeah, no. It's for you, because you have a pool of renters, probably far more than I have, but that is your pool of potential future homeowners.
True. Yep.
So reaching back out to them a year later and talking, or even during the rental process, putting it in their mind. I would do that with some of my renters, is I would put it in their mind, just 1 year, and then I hope you're calling me in a year or in 9 months, because you're ready to buy.
Right. And to me, like, this is gonna sound crazy.
No, but say it.
I've never been really aggressive in that way when it comes to sales.
But it's not aggressive.
It just has to organically happen.
But that's organic, though.
The opportunity presents itself to where now there's been opportunities here and there that present itself where they're like, I really was thinking about buying, but X, Y, Z. And then I'm like, well, have you considered this route? You know what I mean? But not like, hey, keep me in mind if you know what I mean? Like,
well, the thing about it, unless somebody tells me that this space or property, whether it's a rental or a house or a building, is a forever space, then that to me means opportunity that you're going to want to buy or sell this thing in the future. So I will, and it's not like I'm doing it connive. I'm saying it out in the open, but I'm planting the seed. Basically. Exactly. I'm planting the seed of, you're renting now, but I'm a big believer in ownership, right? Or rent and then transitioning to buying. Some people have to rent, and it's okay to rent. I'm like, it's fine to rent.
Yeah.
Some people love a rental lifestyle. Chicago and other cities, the buildings that they have now, these luxury buildings and the amenities that they come with. Some people never
prefer that.
Absolutely, which is perfectly fine. But I've noticed just in my career, the renters that I work with, I try to plant the seed because I want you to know that you have the option to buy in the future.
Yeah.
That this rental solution right here is short term. It can be short term. It does not have to be long term.
Right.
And has anybody ever talked to you about home ownership?
Yeah.
So, I think realtors, that is our opportunity, and that's, like I said, it's a marketing strategy for us. We farm what we call farm, which is basically we mail or we contact renters that we know their lease is coming up. So those are the population or segment of marketing that we go after for potential buyers, right? So but I'm with a renter who is a potential buyer. So it's just having those conversations.
Now I will say on the flip side, when I'm working with investors or people buying, eventually they may become investors. This may now become an investment property where you need a renter. Absolutely. Now I've had more success in that realm because they're looking to me to say, hey, I got a job out of state, or I'm looking to move to another area. Help me rent this space out. And now that builds a connection. Now we're locked in.
Long term. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I think I've had better success on that side of the coin.
Yeah, you have worked with some pretty serious investors here in Chicago that are doing big projects. Mm-hmm. So tell me how did you stumble upon those relationships and what those things have taught you? Because I've learned even just about some development stuff from you, from some of the clientele that you've had. So you've been blessed to get here and not be here 20 years or not be from here, and you come across some pretty big developers.
Mm-hmm. So I have one in particular does a lot of work in Woodlawn, and I actually met him through my team leader when I was I'm still at Compass, but when I was on the team. And he just owned a lot of land on the south side, and decided once the market got to a certain place, he would build on them. So he was building 4 units. He had an 8-unit of just luxury type of properties, and he needed us to rent them out. So because he would buy, or he would build and he would hold, he wouldn't flip them or sell them. He would hold them and rent them. So I just built a relationship with him. I kind of picked his brain. I don't mind being a student to the game. I ask questions and I work hard. So you want me to come and show these properties and get you good renters. We're doing the screening process, everything from point A to point Z. We handled for his developments. And so on the flip side, maybe not on as big a scale, but when my friend purchased her 3-flat, she ended up marrying someone who also had a 3-flat. So they need renters, they need turnover services. So I was able to kind of get into the property management side of things, which kind of just helped me gain more experience on that side in case I decided to dip into that eventually. And that's one thing I love about real estate. There's so many things you can do. And I knew when I was pivoting and switching careers, it had to be something where I did not feel like I was caged in and didn't have options. You know what I mean? So with real estate, whether you want to become an inspector or a lender or a developer, there's so many options for you. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, and you hit it. And just even what I know about you in these 10 years, Monique is a free spirit and a person where she doesn't want to be caged in. So real estate, you hit it, because I was thinking about it and you said it. It allows you to, if I want to sell, if I want to work with buyers, if I want to work with renters, if I want to do property management, it has allowed you to try different things within the real estate business, which makes you so versatile. And you've even started a business out of a need from real estate. Listen, she started her own cleaning company. I did. So I don't even know, how did that come about?
You know what? It was so funny because I started working, like I said, with just a lot of home owners who became investors because, life changes or whatever, and now they need this place rented out. So a lot of times, the space is cleared out and I'm walking through and I'm like, I can't show it in this condition. It needs to be cleaned. You know what I mean? And they don't see the value in that, of course. They're like, girl, just get it rented. But so, one of my clients just refused to invest the money to clean the space. So you know what I did? I went and bought some cleaning supplies and I cleaned it myself because it's like, now I'm representing you. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure I'm showing something that is of quality, that is clean, that is welcoming. So I ended up cleaning it out. And when I did it, I was like, I wonder if there's a need for this, you know what I mean, of turnover cleaning services. Like, if you're prepping a property to be listed and you're about to take photographs, a lot of agents like somebody to come in there, clean it up, make it look nice, and get it prepped for photos. So I'm like, And it was kind of after COVID where things were just kind of up and down. So I'm like, maybe I can do something with this. So again, it happened really fast. So eventually, now I'm just working with agents. I really just work with agents. And again, it's just word of mouth because this is my strategy. Like, if I just do well with one client, if I do well enough, you're not going to want your friend or family member to go to anybody else.
Absolutely.
Because you know what you're going to get every time.
The service leads to referrals,
Absolutely.
Right? Great service leads to referrals.
Absolutely. So it's grown, and now I'm at the place, I was just talking to Fallon about this, where I really want to expand and start getting a team together. But another thing about, wanting to provide exceptional service is that when you build a team, they need to have that same mindset.
Absolutely. And it's hard to find people that have the same mindset
and the same drive
that you do. Yes, absolutely.
So that's the most intimidating part of expanding, but I know I have something good going on.
You do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great service that you were able, a need that you were able to identify. But that's why I even started the show, for situations or just ideas like that. So much comes out of real estate that people don't realize. So I'm like, the fact that you were able to start another business, which is another stream of income, all from being a realtor and seeing that there's a need, and then you're able to tailor your business because you are a realtor and you are showing property. We know what these properties need to look like in order to obtain a buyer's attention, right? So you having that mindset is so important for that business.
It's the smallest things, like, some folks, you think about, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but I want to. When you think about just, prepping a client space for photos or open houses, baby, you got to get all this stuff off these countertops.
Off the countertops. I clean the bathroom. Can you clean the tub? I mean, we want to at least show a little bit. You've got a beautiful shower.
You got to make this better.
Absolutely. These shoes that are all absolutely, yeah.
And we can make it work with what you have.
Absolutely.
It just has to be small tweaks, and you have to be open-minded enough to allow me to guide you through what should be done.
Correct. Yeah, people, that's something that is so overlooked when people are selling a property. They don't think, do you want your personal photos out there?
True,
or not even personal photos, your personal belongings out there on Zillow? Yeah. That's what I said. That's what really how I say it. I'm like, do you want your shoes in the Zillow photo? That's how you have to. They don't think about it until you say it, and they're like, oh, okay, well, tell me exactly what I have to clean up. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, because we tour with so many buyers, I hear buyers make comments of, oh, they should have did this or they should have did that.
Yeah, you hear it on both sides.
Absolutely. And stuff like that. I'm going to even pivot to you getting into flipping. Because that has, I know in my own flipping experience, stuff like that has helped me. And even as I'm designing my properties, I know what buyers are looking for because we're listening, right?
Yeah.
So I want to transition and talk a little bit about you getting into flipping. I know you got into real estate, worked with renters, you worked with buyers, you worked with developers, and then you said, hey, I'm going to try and flip a property.
It was always, early on, it was always the goal for me to eventually get in on the investment side. I didn't know what that would look like, but I knew after doing research that some of the wealthiest people in this world, have built their wealth off of real estate, period. Correct. So I knew, okay, when I was thinking about the long game, is like, okay, how can I build my own portfolio over time, whether that's buying and holding, flipping, whatever. So, and another thing that inspired me to do it is because the team leader that I had at Compass, she was a one-stop shop. So she worked on the listing side, but not only would she list these properties, but before listing, she was a GC, general contractor license, and she had her crew of people come in and say, we're going to update this bathroom. We're going to do this, and you just pay me on the back end. But it was just like, we're just seeing her work. I'm like, oh, yes.
That's that creative side that we have, solution-oriented. That was a good way for her to secure deals. Absolutely. And not let them go or let them sit or something get a lower price.
Yes.
Because it wasn't updated.
It's a value add. And they moved quickly.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where people knew her work. They would go in and say, yeah, this was Miss Ferrata. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just had so much respect for her in that regard. So, with the flipping, I'm like, I was so excited because of that creative side of like, oh, I'm going to buy this property and it's going to be so cute. I know what floors I want, the light fixtures. I'm excited, right? But yeah, it wasn't, it's not all peaches and roses. It's not.
So let's talk about that. I didn't know how deep you wanted to get into this latest project.
Yeah.
But you underwent a flip. This was about a year.
About a year and some change.
Almost a year and a half ago. You bought a property in Avalon Park, right?
Yes.
A single family home.
Yes.
A beautiful brick single family home she purchased. And at that time, I know because she called me out, was like, friend, I want you to come look at this property based on, your experience. And it is a beautiful property. So you purchased it. Just talk to me about how you went through what you were looking for. Let's go through the flip process. Because I've talked about this on the show. When I first started the podcast, even when my first interview, I talked about it. Just, identifying the property, looking at your ARVs, things like that. So
yes. And coming in as a realtor, I just really focused on the comps. I just really focused on the potential of how much money this can make if it sells in 3 months.
So you didn't necessarily focus on the cost to do the project?
I did not.
Got it.
I did not. Okay. And when I say it was an amazing investment on a great block, and there was so much activity in the area where I'm like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. You know what I mean? If we could, and we had people coming in telling us, contractors who I didn't know at the time, weren't really savvy, would tell us, oh man, 3-4 months tops. And I'm like, really? This is a huge home and it's gutted to the studs.
It needed everything.
It needed absolutely everything. So we're like, really? Okay, great. So even when it came down, and I feel like for newbie investors, it's really important. Do as much research as you possibly can, especially when it comes to the financial side of things, because we chose to go with a hard money lender, which was great because, they're not checking for credit. They're not asking for bank statements. They're just like, do you have your 20%? Then you got it. You know what I mean? And of course, they want to protect their financial interest in the property. So they're going to run their comps too. And if the numbers seem right, but we're newbie investors and we're telling you that. And you're seeing the property for yourself and how much work it actually needs. And if you all claim to be savvy investors on your end, then you should see this property and say, they should have said, you're way over your head. Either now you can take this on, but I need to vet your GCs, make sure they have a crew, and we're paying them directly to make sure they're getting it done to protect us and protect them.
Yeah, but
that's not how they make money.
Not at all.
That's not how they make money.
If anything, they're going to probably have somebody that you have to go through to come out when you want draws. And a draw is when you use a hard money lender, they're normally the loan to value. They're lending you purchase. My words are coming out wrong. They're lending you money to purchase that property is normally 85%. Well, let's just say minimum 75%. To purchase that property, and then they're most times giving you 100% renovation costs, right? But you have a schedule. You have to put together a scope in the beginning, right?
Yes.
That they approve, right?
Baby, when I tell you my scope was so elementary, like, how did they know? You should have seen from my scope of work. I didn't know.
But I think partially some of these hard money lenders, but that's a way sometimes that they make money. No, they don't want a property to go into foreclosure or the borrower to default or any of that, but they sometimes can use that to make money. But like the hard money lender that I went with, they wanted to know your experience. You had to have had at least 2 flips.
Yeah.
They wanted to, and then they wanted you to send them the information. They looked at it. What did you put in it? All of that. But this lender that you went with didn't have that. And not every lender, not every hard money lender out
there
like
this. There are great hard money lenders out there. We just didn't have enough conversations with folks to get a good match for us.
Right.
That will put us in the best position. So even with this hard money lender, yes, they said if you guys are savvy investors, we'll even give you a better interest rate. Oh, you're not. You're a newbie, so we're going to hit you with 15% on top of your 20%, on top of the closing fees and our attorney fees that you have to pay for, right? And so we're like, okay, but it's still such a good investment. Like, we'll be okay. We were able to negotiate a what do you call it? Like, they gave us $10,000 up front in advance.
Yeah, which I had never heard of.
Yeah. So I was able to negotiate that. But even still, like, even when it came to the timeline of how long, it took us to finish, first of all, the term was 6 months. We should have never gotten locked into a 6-month agreement, considering how much work was needed and considering we were newbies and we would have to, there was just going to be some time where we're just trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
So which cut into your 6-month time.
Which cut into my 6-month time. And going beyond that 6 months, we were hit every time with a 5% fee, which based on our numbers was an additional $9,000. Right? So it's like the things that you have to be mindful of. But I honestly feel like if we had a GC come in there and knock it out, we would have been great. And
so let's pause there because I think the part that, and this is in the lesson that you learned, is you didn't hire a GC. You guys tried to GC it yourself as brand new investors, which I would say was probably the biggest lesson.
The biggest lesson
is to have a GC or an experienced project manager to work with you all and the contractors to get the project done.
Now, as far as bringing in the main folks when you're dealing with, a complete good rehab, I would say we could have handled the electrician, the HVAC, the plumbing,
all your trades, your individual
all the trades.
Yeah.
But once those walls are closed up, you need somebody to knock out the rest of it.
The finished work.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you have to get a good GC that knows what things cost, baby. The covers for those recessed lighting, honey. The plates for the light switches. That's what y'all asking for?
Absolutely.
We ain't getting no damn lights up in here. We're not doing
it. No, I understand the things, but not quickly. Even. I mean, yes, your contractor knowing the cost and setting the expectation if your client doesn't know. So somebody has to know the cost of things, right?
Yes.
But those things, back to again a lesson, should have been built when you were sitting down, going over your numbers with a contractor.
Yeah,
is what you should have been done in the beginning, right? Yep. The contractor would have said, "Oh, your building materials are too low. You're under by $15,000. You guys need to take this. Your rough materials, drywall, insulation, all those things need to be taken up.
Yeah.
So your costs in the beginning were off, which affected you guys in the end. And you're saying you're saying it, and I'm saying it. Had you all worked with a GC, a licensed GC in the beginning, before you even secured the deal,
yes,
it would have helped.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
it would have helped.
Absolutely,
it would have helped.
So and you know what else? Like for the investors out there, the newbie investors especially, like if you're buying on a block and your property just so happens to sit next to an empty property, baby, you got to find out what's going on with that property.
Absolutely,
because it was a guardianship type situation for the property next door to us. The daughter's mother was sick, so she took on the responsibility of maintaining that property, which she had no desire to do. So during the winter months, the pipe burst in the basement. It flooded to the ceiling of the basement and then eventually crept over to our property and flooded out ours. Now, the mom did not have insurance on the property. Mm-hmm. And our insurance wouldn't cover it. That's another thing, insurance.
Yes, you have to have it when you're doing a flip.
Our insurance didn't cover it because the cause of the flooding started at the neighboring building instead of in ours. Like had our pipe burst, we would have been fine. Mm-hmm. But it was because it started there and then creeped over to ours, they wouldn't cover it. This Liberty Mutual, y'all. Good folk. So, things to consider. But it was also, I feel like, that's the beautiful thing about Chicago because, Lord, if we had the capital, we could have just scooped up that one too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you'd have two properties.
They were only selling it for $95,000. A beautiful single family.
So we've got into lessons, right? With that. Would you flip again?
Absolutely, 1,000%. But baby, it's gonna be cosmetic only.
Monique, you can't
I'm doing flows, cabinets, paints.
Okay.
I might switch out some light fixtures.
So you want something where it's not a full gut.
I can't do a full gut. Okay. Maybe with the bathrooms because that was manageable.
Well, kitchens and bathrooms sell property, so you always want to touch those spots.
You know what I'm saying? So I'll touch them, but if I don't have to gut them, I'm gonna say whatever I can say. I'm gonna say whatever I can say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, the next one would have to be an in and out type of project.
Got it.
3-4 months tops. But I would absolutely do it again.
And with flipping, I think we both agree you are only as good as your team, and that is your contractor team. Absolutely. Yep. So,
and whoever you choose to invest with.
Correct. Yes, and your partners, your investment partners, right?
Yep.
And then whatever lender you're using, so you want to make sure
lender that is key. Yep. Because if you build a good enough relationship with them, eventually, that's what when I was working with the developer in Woodlawn, he told me like, if you get in good with these, whether hard money lenders or banks, they're going to want to give you money.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're knocking out these projects, they're coming to you with
and they're giving you your available funding goes up. What you qualify for, what you can get goes up. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm glad to hear that you are going to do it again, that your first experience didn't scare you enough.
Oh, no.
Because it can be scary. I get this question a lot of time because, as you know, like half of my clientele is investors. And I love to flip. And I love working with flippers first time or whatever. But these are the conversations that I have. And these are the stories. I might not say my friend Monique, but your story is something that I add and say, these are the things that you don't want to do. Right. So I appreciate you for even sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Out there because people need to know.
Yeah.
It is a risk, but to be in this business, we take risks. To be a realtor, it takes risks. I mean, we don't get paid until deals close, right? And so we output a lot of money up front to secure that money on the back end. It's a risk, right?
Yeah.
So even just being a traditional realtor is a risk. Getting into the investment side of real estate is a risk.
Now I will say the only thing, because I was literally Googling at one point in tears of like, is this common for? Is this the norm?
We were having a lot of conversations. Yeah,
it is the norm. Like,
yeah,
first, you're either gonna break even, you're gonna lose a little money, or you might get lucky and make a little money. But either way, you learn. The learning lesson is the most valuable of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, and you said it, but the biggest thing that I would have said to you, and I've said it to you, is getting the team, having the people, together is you're a licensed contractor, even your electrician and your plumber, like getting your people together and your money are the biggest things. But I think you've learned a lot, and I'm glad to hear you say that you're not scared to do it again.
Oh,
yeah, no, good.
No,
so I'm glad to hear that.
You know me. I don't give up easily.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So what's next for you then? So flipping, I know you won't flip, you will flip again. What's the next endeavor?
So I'm really gonna focus on, expanding my team for the cleaning business. I really think that could be a profitable business for me and allow just some passive income. But I'm also leaning more towards leasing management. Because I feel like the rental market has always kind of been pretty steady.
It is, rents continue to go up.
Yes.
And people are still renting, although rents are going up. So that is a consistent flow of business.
So I really want to get more on-site experience because the on-site opportunities allow for a base salary. And some will allow you to still hold your license either with them or, with an outside brokerage where you can still have that source of income should sales or any opportunities come up. So that's what I'm really focusing on. So I'm kind of stepping away from the sales part of it and just trying to find something a little more steady, more consistent.
Yeah. What do you think is happening? Because we as realtors get this question all the time from buyers or just people out there in the market once they found out we're realtors. What do you think of the real estate market? Or what do you think of the real estate market as a whole the market in Chicago?
Yeah. I just feel like it's such a broad, like a vague, it's because I feel like every market is different.
Absolutely.
And when you say market, are we talking single families? Are we talking condos?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just is different. So, I feel like, I know that the prices are still high. I read somewhere like, there's been like a 9.4 increase in home prices year over year. So prices are still high. Everybody's complaining that inventory is still pretty low.
Very.
But it depends on what you're talking about, baby, because there's plenty of homes to scoop up in Washington Park or in Chatham or in Inglewood. It just depends on what your journey is, what you're looking for, right? You know, because my developer friends are doing well. They find properties left and right. They're going to these auctions. And you know, I am now honestly seeing that people are moving out the idea of once I get my money, once I get secured in my career, I'm going to go out and get my dream home. No. Now people are pivoting and saying, I'm going to buy me a building that I'm going to live in for a certain period of time. And then once that is performing, then that's going to fund the dream home that I want. Yes. I think a lot of people are waking up to the investment switch over like the last 5 years. Absolutely. I've seen that a lot. I'm having that conversation more and more with people that come to me and say, or renters. I have a friend now who's renting in an apartment building, and he's like, you know, I've been opening up the mail that comes. I know I'm not supposed to open up the mail for the owner, but I've been opening up the mail to see has he been paying the taxes. And he's like, they were paying it for years, and then I just saw the taxes were sold in 2019 and 2020. And he's like, what do you think I should do? And I said, do you want to buy the building? And he was like, I never thought about it. And I'm like, why don't you see if the owner is willing to sell you the building? You still continue to live in a unit, fix the rest of the units up, fix the building up, refinance it, pull that money out, go buy yourself something, because he wants to flip as well. Okay. So I'm talking to him about strategies of how he can do this. But people, you have to get creative. I think the trend, you hit the nail on the head. The transition is happening. People are figuring out, how can I get creative instead of going into just traditional home ownership and what our parents and our grandparents did. Let me just buy this property. I'm going to keep it forever. And keep it for the rest of my life. Yeah. The younger generation, and even people our age and younger, they're getting more creative and savvy in ways to go about using real estate to build generational wealth and how you can do things. So we're having those conversations more, and we're having to get creative as realtors and to present our clients or potential clientele with different options that they can have. So. And that's, I feel like that's the fun part of this business. You know what I mean? There's just so many creative ways that you can get deals done and, you know, help people reach their real estate goals. Yeah. Absolutely. So we talked about biggest lesson you've learned as a realtor, and now as a flipper. Moving forward, like if you could represent, what's like your ideal client? Like if you could represent, I thought about this question yesterday. I'm like, if somebody ever asked me like, what's the ideal type of client if you could represent for a deal, what would it be? I've had an amazing client. I've already experienced my dream client. You have? Oh my God. Okay. Yes. So this was a woman who, her and her husband had two beautiful girls who were moving off to college. So they were going to be empty nesters. So they wanted to, she had a home in, oh my God, I can't think of the area, but I told you about it, but you probably not gonna remember. Was this in the suburbs? It was in the burbs. Aurora? It was in the burbs. Aurora. Oh, I can't think of it. Okay, but anyway, so she was gonna hold that townhome, and not even rent it out, but just have it to where, you know, they're in the burbs, you know, because I think her husband worked near the property. So she was like, we're out there, we stay there, but we want a cute condo, you know, in the South Loop. So I helped her to find, matter of fact, I didn't help her, I'm sorry. She sent me the property. That's normally how it happens in today's day with Zillow. And all she said, run the comps and figure out a good offer. We went to tour it. We put in an offer like the next day. Wow. So we secured that space. Then she called me and said, okay, well, one of my daughters decided to stay in the city and go to Northwestern. She needs a condo. She sent me the condo that her daughter needed and said, run the comps, get back to me on a good offer. She put in an offer within, it took a little time, maybe like a few weeks. We were under contract. Went smoothly, great. She always has her documents in order, like never an issue. So we end up closing on that. She calls me back within 6 months and says, now I want to sell my home, my townhome, which she renovated herself. So she has a good eye for design too. So she can find good deals and she's not worried about the work because she has her people. So I ended up listing that home for her, and we went under contract within a week because the market was just crazy over there at that time, or the demand for stuff was just crazy over there at that time. So she was my dream client because she knew what she wanted. She was very intentional of doing her own research. It's like she just needed me, honestly, I think, to just keep things
to
order,
get the transaction right.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Because did you negotiate the deals or?
Yeah, I did. I did. I was able to negotiate.
Okay.
Yeah, I was able to negotiate and get some good numbers. But she was the star of the show, and I was just playing a supportive role, which I didn't mind.
Yeah, that is
my job easy.
That's a dream client.
You know what I mean?
That's a dream client. So she didn't make you work super duper hard for it.
No,
you didn't
really.
work up front for it. You maybe in the back end or during it.
Yeah,
you know what
maybe,
I'm saying?
the back end and during, yes. Yeah. Because she was also very particular, like, well, why this and why that? No, we got to look into this and figure out that. You know what I mean? But as long as I'm on top of it and I'm getting answers for her, she's moving forward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love her.
Those dream clients, they come around every now and then. But
yeah, she's great.
That's one of the benefits of our job. When you don't get a dream client, we get to educate. And I think you get to build relationships with the clients that we do have that don't know what they want.
Yeah.
So I think that's how we build those long-lasting relationships. You do with a client like that too, because they know what they want and they know they can rely on you to get it done.
Right.
But those clients that don't know, we get a chance to get a feel and an idea for who they are. The same on the reverse side, right? Yeah. And that's how you build that trusting relationship. So that's the one thing that when we don't have that client that has it all together, right? So
you are the expert.
You are the expert. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as we're about to close out, but a couple rapid fire questions I do want to ask.
Sure.
So what is your favorite Chicago neighborhood since you've been here 10 years? What?
There's so many that I love.
You have to pick one.
Why? I can't do top 3.
Okay, just top 3. Come on.
Okay,
come with it.
Okay, time. We got time. Okay. So top 3, I would say the top one for me lately has been Fulton Market because there's just so much to do in Fulton. The second would be Wicker Park.
Okay.
Because we've had some good times in Wicker, off Milwaukee Ave. One of my favorite reggae spots is over there, Sub T, baby.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then I will say my third would be a mix between Bronzeville and Hyde Park.
I figured that. I figured Bronzeville and Hyde Park would definitely be in your list.
And only because it just blew my mind the number of Black-owned businesses over there that you're able to support is endless. Virtue, 14 Parish, The Dawn, Silver Room, Sean Michelle Ice Cream Parlor.
Absolutely.
Like, baby, I'm all over there.
Good. No, Black business is strong in those areas.
Yes,
and
they are.
Ownership, too. I mean, when you look at all the condos,
and
I know Bronzeville is heavily on condos and rentals, too, but it is a lot of Black ownership, home ownership.
Absolutely.
And commercial. In that area.
Yep.
So what's the best restaurant in the city for you? I know we talked about Jamaican being or Caribbean being one of Monique's favorite, but if you had to pick your favorite restaurant, what would it be?
It would be Guild Bar.
Oh, that's a good one. I wasn't expecting that.
It will be Guild Bar.
I love Guild Bar.
Some of the best steak I've ever had. Some of the best cocktails, like service.
It's impeccable. Absolutely. Okay,
yes,
Guild Bar.
Absolutely.
I never knew that. And then what is one piece of advice you give your younger self 10 years ago? So the Monique that moved to Chicago after that amazing summer that you had. So what's that one piece of advice you would give your young self?
I would say keep God at the center of every decision you make.
Okay.
Because I feel like if I had done that early on, like I probably would have been a lot further. You know what I mean? Not saying that I haven't accomplished a lot because I have, but I just feel like I had to go through a lot of valleys, you know what I mean? And just, crazy things that have happened that maybe I could have avoided had I sought out God first. You know what I mean? So right now I'm just more grounded in my spiritual journey because I can't do it alone. Especially that, I'm 40 now, so I want to keep elevating and evolving, but I just got to be more disciplined in my spiritual journey.
I love that. Nope, I love that. And I feel like that has helped you, or as you realize that's what you needed, it's helped you to finding your purpose.
Yes.
Yes. So
absolutely.
I love that for you. I love that for you.
Thank you,
so Monique, tell people where they can connect with you.
So if you're looking for cleaning services, again, turnover cleaning. So most of these units are vacant, or if you're a realtor and you're trying to list a home that your clients still live in, but you just want to spruce up for photos and for open houses, you can actually just email me at 247.cleanfreak@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram if you want to see some before and after photos at 247.cleanfreak. But I guess, and if you know of any property managers who are looking for leasing managers or assistant property managers, you can email me the information to Monique.Neal, Neal @compass.com, and we can have a conversation.
Awesome. So Monique, thank you so much for joining me today. Your journey from Cali to Chicago, your growth in real estate, and your transition into property flipping is like truly inspiring. I'm so glad you came on today to share your experiences with me and with my audience. Your hustle, your resilience, and the lessons you shared, like, is something I know our listeners will take to heart, as I have as well, even just in our regular everyday conversations, because I do talk to her often. So to all our listeners, remember, success in real estate or any business is about adapting, staying persistent, and seizing opportunities when they come. Whether you're renting, buying, selling, or flipping, the key is to stay informed, build strong relationships, and never stop learning. So if you missed any part of today's episode, don't worry. You can catch the replay on intellectualradio.com, their YouTube channel, iHeartRadio, and across my social media platforms. Thank you for tuning into the Inner Circle podcast, where real estate meets real life and real talk. I'm your host, your Home Girl Jillian. Until next time, stay focused, stay inspired, and keep building your dream one deal at a time. Thank you, Monique. Thank you.
That was fun.
It was fun. We're going to log off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Okay, I got to post that.